Hi, everybody. This is David Osterloh. Many of you know me because I ran a retail business in Elk City for over 30 years. That's where I learned that if you take care of your customers, they will take care of you. So when it was time to look for a career in real estate, I wanted to land someplace that had the same principles. Western Oklahoma Realty seemed like a natural fit. Putting people before property is the same as taking care of your customers. Since I've been at Western Oklahoma Realty, I've come to understand that is how they do business. People before property is not just a hashtag, it's a way of taking care of customers. When you are looking for your next home, we will find a place that your family can call home. When you are going to sell your current home, we will find a buyer that loves your place as much as you do. Western Oklahoma Realty, where putting people before property is a way of life. Come see us at 602 West 3rd Street. We are in the historic greenhouse on the hill, 1 block west of Homeland. Or you can check out our website, westernoklahomarealty.com, or even call us at 580-225-6271.
If you build it, he will.
It's the Skinny on Sports Podcast with Aaron Cowk.
I throw balls far. You want good words? Data language.
Talk real sports with a real man.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
And now, here's the be-all, end-all, know-it-all of high school, college, and pro sports. Aaron Skinny Cowk with the Skinny on Sports.
We're talking about practice, man. I'm the MVP.
Good Monday morning out there, Western Oklahoma. Welcome to the Skinny on Sports right here on 98.1 FM, the Sports Animal. Glad to have you along for the next hour. Man, we got a jam-packed show. This could be one where we could probably do, I don't know, till noon if we really had to with all the stuff going on. Not a bunch of time for the NFL. We normally do that tomorrow anyhow. So Major League Baseball playoffs, Game 7 coming up tonight, the first Game 7 in the baseball playoffs since 2020. No wins at home yet in the American League Championship Series. What does that mean? Last night's game looks like it was more of a blowout than it really was, but Texas bounces back after losing all 3 at home. Takes the first one of what they were hoping would be 2 in Houston, setting up that game for tonight, Game 7, Max Scherzer versus Christian Javier. The Phillies can close it out at home today. So they won Game 5, avoided the fate of the Rangers as far as losing the middle 3 games. They snuck out Game 5, so now they've got 2 shots at it to win at home, a place that they haven't lost in forever. College football from the weekend, Oklahoma escapes UCF 31-29. Do you count it as a glimmer of hope if you're an OU fan, what you saw from the run game late? Was the defense bad? OSU absolutely in the battle to go to Arlington right now. Is Ollie Gordon the best running back in the Big 12? Oklahoma State's offensive line has been playing great lately. Talk about the rest of the Big 12, what happened, and, of course, around the country as well with some big games and some big results. It was kind of Survivor Saturday for most because there were some teams that had been rolling, OU included, that had their hands full. Some made it through unscathed. A couple did not make it through, most notably the powder blue of the Carolina Tar Heels. And then did you see what Emmanuel Acho, what his advice to Caleb Williams was? What an interesting thought that is. And how much more convoluted is it now than it would have been, say, 5 years ago because of 3 little letters that may preclude some of these guys from being able to just shut it down. High school football Friday night. We'll talk about what happened in 4A1. The Elks held off Weatherford. Clinton's 1 win away from the district title. How that all sets up. Merritt took it on the chin from Thomas. Their playoff hopes are pretty well dashed. Sayers are on life support. There is a way, but it starts with a win this week. And then Hollis with a big win as well. And then we'll look what's coming up for the playoff implications in Class 4A. 225-9698 is the phone or the text line. That's 225-9698. Give us a call, shoot us a text. We can talk about any of those things or whatever else might be on your mind. Chime right in, 225-9698. If you're going to be outside the listening area, a couple ways to stay in touch with the show. Log on to kadsam.com or download the app. The app has it all. It's got radio. It's got Penny News. It's got Big Elk and Paragon TV. And then, of course, the Skinny on Sports podcast. If you miss the show entirely, go back and check it out everywhere and anywhere that you can find a podcast. How are you today, Jared?
Good. How are you doing?
Wonderful. This is the first time I haven't seen you in a Texas Ranger cap going into a game.
It's downstairs. I
Okay.
just took it off.
I was going to say.
It's downstairs.
Of all the days not to have it,
It's the one
not
hat.
to have your lid.
It's the one hat I have not worn during this postseason run, and I wore it last night. So I'm not ever not wearing it now. I'm going to wear it tonight and hopefully going into the World Series. But I'm calling it the lucky hat.
The lucky hat.
And I tried every combination, and so last night I'm like, all right, what's going to work? A little superstitious going on here, but whatever worked. So I'm going to do it again tonight. Hopefully it works out for the Rangers.
We'll get to the baseball in a little bit. Let's go back Friday night, high school football. The Elks held off Weatherford 21-14. It was a wild game. It started out the way it started with the pick six on the very first play of the game. With the first of what ended up being 5 interceptions for McSpirit from Weatherford. But I give the Eagles tons of credit for hanging in there because with the backup quarterback in the game, it's starting like that, and then throwing another pick, kind of in the Big Elk red zone in the second drive, for hanging around and being able to run the football on Elk City's defense as well as anybody has all year long. It just felt like there was a few too many times where maybe the Elks finally did rise up on a first down play or even a second down play to put Weatherford back in a position to where they felt like they had to throw it. And unfortunately for the Eagles, the Big Elk secondary was awesome. And it just seems like they were in the right place and were able to capitalize off of those mistakes for just enough to hold on and win that game. Everybody knew what the implications were. Weatherford had a bunch of guys that didn't get to play due to injury. But I thought kudos to them for the way they played and the way they battled and the way that they were able to take the Elks right to the brink. And, it's you can look at it a bunch of ways, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of which, if I was the Weatherford, I would be thinking, golly, we turned it over 5 times. We had 2 drops in the end zone of touchdown passes, and we lose by 7. But at the end of the day, though, none of that matters. It's a W or a L, and the Big Elks got the win, and now they're in great position to host a playoff game.
Yeah, back to Weatherford, it has to be agonizing if you go back to the Clinton game and how that went for them, where they played really good. It's just like 2 costly mistakes cost them, and Clinton was able to capitalize on it, maybe 2 or 3. And same thing here. I mean, they're that close to getting a couple of key wins and being almost district champs. And now they're it looks like they might have to travel in the first round of the playoffs. But, yeah, I mean, it's the cards that were dealt to them. And yeah, I'm with you. Hats off to Weatherford for they had a lot of injuries that they had to deal with, and that's what we got. And still got a good game and a great effort from them, which we expect. It doesn't, whoever they throw out there. I mean, this is a rivalry game, so you can kind of throw out that stuff, and you're going to get an emotional game. We saw a lot of emotion out there, hard hitting, big plays that turned out to matter, including the very first play of the game. So I think it was a game that we kind of expected, both emotionally and defensively. I think we really expected a really good defensive battle, and that's what we got. But good job, Big Elks, though. I mean, that's on the Big Elk side of things, that's a game that you can get caught up in with the emotion and do some things over the top. And they played within themselves, and they had the drives that matter. I mean, they did things that mattered when they needed it. Key drives to run the clock out. Key plays like the quarterback sneak or the not really a sneak, the boot run and all that stuff. So hats off to them, and a couple more games left, and that really sets us up to possibly host a playoff game, which is big. It's absolutely huge. Home field is huge in the playoffs. So they're kind of like peaking. I don't want to say peaking at the right time, but they're crescendoing up, right? Stock's going up on the Big Elks right now. So that's a good thing as we get closer to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Listen, it was what it was. There was some stuff that I'm sure, looking back at the film, that you got to clean up. And I know it's emotional. I know it's this. I know it's that. But there's just stuff that you can't have happen, and it didn't bite the Elks this time. But you can see where, a penalty here, a penalty there, just kind of losing your mind for a couple of seconds or a half a second, whatever it is. Next thing you know, everybody's sitting around talking about, golly, if we just wouldn't have done, So it's definitely an experience that can be learned from in that type of environment, because the next 2 weeks the Elks just need to win one of them against the bottom part of the district in Woodward and in John Marshall, and if you do that, then you host a playoff game, and one of those 4A2 teams comes out here. And we saw a year ago, even as district champs, Newcastle as the 4th team in 4A2 had the Elks right down to the wire, right? I mean, it was a close game. So, those are things that there's always teaching moments, I guess, and they're a lot easier taken with a win over one of your rivals as opposed to in a losing situation.
Well, that's what I said earlier.
Cost it.
Yeah, I said it earlier in the year. The Bridge Creek game stands out. They weren't sharp. They got the win, but I was kind of pleased because thinking, okay, got the win, learned more about ourselves and what to get better with, what to work on. And that's still, even after week 8, through 8 weeks of football, that still rings true, which is actually encouraging for me. They're playing really good, but there's still stuff that they can work on, and they'll work on. It's a good coaching staff. Maynard and staff does a great job with them and film session, they're going, hey guys, we got to do this better. We got to do that better. So I like that. We're not resting back and just going through the motions. And that's going to be really easy to do with these next 2 opponents. And I don't think they'll do that.
It's a similar situation to last year, except for the only difference is you're trying to hold on to the number 2 spot and not win the district.
Yeah.
But this is exactly the situation it was coming off of the Weatherford game a year ago. And so maybe that's to even a way to, since how that felt, a lot of these these guys were out there, or at least on the team, and how to do that better if there is something to do better. I mean, the Woodward game, it ended up being one of those. Just you look back and golly, it felt like we came out of that game with like a triage unit, right? That's the game that Tucker tore his ACL. That's the game where Gino got hurt on an ankle. It just seemed like there was a bunch of different things there, in a game that didn't – I mean, it mattered. Had to win it, but at the end of the day, it was over pretty quick.
Yeah.
So there's probably some lessons to be learned about from even last year being in a similar situation. I mean, it's a little different, but it's very, very similar with what the Elks have the next 2 weeks. All right, so Clinton defeated Chickasha. They move one step closer. They're one win away from wrapping up the district title. Clinton's got two road games to finish, at Cache and at Woodward, but one of those win one, and the district title race is over. And then Weatherford plays their last district game this week at home against John Marshall. They win that one, they can do no worse than third in the district. So you can say that 4A1 starting to the picture's becoming clear, and it looks to me for all the world like it's going to go Clinton, Elk City, Weatherford, and then next week in week 10, whoever wins Cache Chickasha will be the fourth team in the playoffs. So it's pretty clear cut, I think, with what's coming up this week and then next week in 4A1. You see everyone's kind of slotted in there unless something crazy happens. 4A2 is a little bit different.
Next 2 weeks are going to be fun.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. Stay here first. Merritt and Sayre both took losses in Class A's District 1. Merritt's pretty well eliminated from the playoff hunt, not only because of who they've lost to in the standings, but also what they've got coming. I mean, that was the first of 3 straight games against the teams at the top of the district. Fairview's still looming. I think that's this week that they get Fairview. So Oilers, that we talked about it after the battle for Beckham County. That was the game that they had to win, right? To really stay in the hunt because of what they had coming down the stretch. Now they have Hooker at home, then go to Fairview week 10. That's not the recipe to move up the standings. Sayre, on the other hand, they're not completely eliminated, but they need help. Losing to Moreland 44-24 on Friday night. They go to Texoma, so they got to beat Texoma. And then they need Texoma to beat Moreland, and then all the stuff kind of work out. Because then at that point you'd have a 3-way tie for 4th. You'd all beat each other, the district points. So it's a hard row to hoe if you're Sayre, because, matter of fact, I don't think they can get there. If you look at Moreland at 15 points, but they could take an L here. Actually, you know what? They still play Thomas as well. So Moreland could end up with 4 losses. Texoma could end up with 4 losses. Yeah, that's right. That's how it happens. And then we get district points. You need Moreland. They drop 15. It's minus 15. Texoma, yeah, they can't get there. At minus 50. So never mind.
Yeah.
Merritt could get there points-wise. But they've got to beat. Yeah, that's not looking good. As you look at those district points, they needed to save some of those points on Friday night to be able to stay in it. Now, Hollis, on the other hand, they got a huge win at home against Balco Forgan. And so the Tigers now 2-1 in the district, currently 3rd, with games at Shattuck, at Turpin. Win one of those, and you stay out of the 4th place, right? Especially if you beat Shattuck, because that'd be head-to-head win, and you'd be right there. But guaranteed in the playoffs after beating Balco Forgan, unless something crazy happens. The Tigers in there with the 28-12 win over Balco Forgan. So I think that's kind of the way that played out last year in that situation where they were that kind of came down to it, and that's the way that went in B1. So Hollis is going to be a playoff team. Now it just matters how they slot in district Class B District 1. All right, we mentioned 4A2. So if we start with, okay, Clinton, Elk City, Weatherford, Chickasha Cache winner.
Right.
Let's kind of go with that. If that's the order that it looks like everything's going to finish up in District 1. District 2 is completely different. They do have the same scenario at the very, very top. You've got Blanchard, 5-0. They've already beat Tuttle. They've already beat Newcastle. They play Bethany this week. A Blanchard win, and the district title race is over. The Lions are going to be district champs, which means they would host, if you kind of go forward, whoever wins that Chickasha Cache game. I think that's pretty obvious, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the thing about Blanchard is they kind of have a mulligan if Bethany would lose week 10 to Newcastle. Because then
very, very possible.
Yeah, and everybody's got one loss. Blanchard's beat everybody but Bethany. You know, that it looks like the Lions are probably won. Now, second, third, and fourth, who knows? This could go 100 different ways. The first game that'll matter is coming up on Friday night. Tuttle, Newcastle. Tuttle's hosting Newcastle. Now, if the Tigers get it done, they're going to be second. Because at that point, they would have wins over Bethany and Newcastle. Tie breaks all their way. If Newcastle were to win, then, it could literally end up 3 or 4 or 5 different ways because of that game in Week 10 with Newcastle and Bethany. So we're basically on Friday night, if Tuttle wins, if Tuttle beats Newcastle and Blanchard, it's going to go Blanchard, Tuttle, and then the Big Elks will be scoreboard watching for that Week 10 game with Newcastle and Bethany to see who's coming out here.
Right. Clear as mud.
Yeah.
I'm just taking it week by week.
Yeah,
So just watching this week, it's Tuttle and Newcastle's game. I'm really going to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and we got nothing last week out of 4A2 because the schedule worked out where the top played the bottom. That's right. All 4 top teams played all 4 bottom teams, and they killed them. So this is the week. The next 2 weeks is when everything starts to get sifted out.
Man, I wish 4A1 was scheduled like that. Whereas Elk, Clinton, Weatherford were like the last 2 or 3 weeks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then whoever the fourth contender for the fourth team would be.
That's interesting. We got some of those games early.
4 spot.
Well, Blanchard playing everybody we got early, or playing Tuttle and Newcastle. That was like week 5 and 6. But now we've had to wait a few weeks for everybody else to start, kind of going through the rest of the schedule. And now we get it's loaded at the back end there. And then also one more game that will matter, or we all think it'll matter, hopefully down the road. In District 4 of 4A, 2 undefeated teams go at it, Poteau and Ada. Poteau hosts Ada for the 4A4 district crown. Why does that matter, you ask? They're clear across the state. Well, if you spin it forward and the Elks take care of business, finish second, and if they're able to win their first-round playoff game, they would more than likely go to the winner of Poteau and Ada. So that's why paying attention to that across the state of Oklahoma this week as well, with those two 8-0 teams, really kind of 2 and 3, and some of the polls. I've got the Oklahomans poll pulled up right here. Yeah, 2 and 3, Poteau and Ada. So that's a huge game for
how convenient that the Oklahoman put them up at 2 and 3, because Ada was 4. And
they jumped Blanchard.
They jumped Blanchard, which I get it. They're undefeated, 8-0. So the 3 undefeated 4A teams are 1 through 3.
Yeah,
Wagner, Poteau, Ada.
And it doesn't have the next. Then you'd go, oh, well, why aren't the 1-loss teams the next 2? Well, Tuttle beat Newcastle. So
they haven't played.
Oh no, they haven't played. Yeah, I'm thinking about Blanchard.
Blanchard beat Tuttle
and Newcastle.
Yeah, but there you go. 4A2, Blanchard 4, Tuttle 5, Newcastle 6,
Bethany 9.
4A1, Clinton 7, and Elk City right there at 10.
Yeah, the Elks came in after beating. Salisaw was in there. They got beat. Weatherford was in there. Obviously, they got beat. So Bethany and the Elks joined the poll at the bottom. It reminds me of a little bit.
What's that?
Just the polling is 2 years ago. Now, the difference is the Elks started pretty high in the poll and kind of moved down as they lost. 2 years ago, we'd look at this poll on a Monday after winning, thinking, where are they? Where are they? Where are they? Never got ranked. The next thing you know, shocking the world with 2 wins on the east side of the state, and they're going, well, why wasn't that team ranked?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, take my beef with the Oklahoman. I take it with a grain of salt. It's about clicks, not about.
Yeah, but I think they've got it.
I think they finally got it right.
It's interesting because if you look at the 4A2 losses, they're really good losses. Mm-hmm. They're either to each other or like Tuttle's loss. Their other loss is Guthrie.
Which, turns out to be a pretty good loss.
And it turns out they were the only team to score on them until last week.
They weren't necessarily blown out either.
20-3.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting. Still lots to happen here in the last 2 weeks of the high school football season to get ready for the playoffs. But we do know one thing. We do know that Elk City, Clinton, Weatherford are all going to be in those playoffs. Now it's just a matter of where they're going and who they're playing.
And Class C is a top 4 in their districts, too, that make playoffs?
I think
so. And Corn Bible Academy is in contention. Last I checked. And, of course, Mountain View, too, in the same district. I forget what district that is.
District 2. They're both.
Yeah. So, something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, both 3 and 2. We'll be back.
We were sitting around the office one day and tried to explain what Western Oklahoma Realty was. If you had to put it in a dictionary, what would you get? What kind of definition you would get? I think I said what about, were people before property?
People before property means to me that you care about the person more than you care about what they're buying, in that you want them to get the best thing for their circumstances, the best home, the best investment.
For all your real estate needs, give Western Oklahoma Realty a call at 225-6271.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
The Skinny on Sports.
Welcome back, Skinny on Sports, 98.1 FM, the sports animal, hanging out here on a Western Oklahoma Realty Monday. Speaking of Western Oklahoma Realty, I scratched and clawed and got back to even or 500 in the Western Oklahoma Realty College Pick'em. And then this week was just a disaster, Jared. 3-7, and now 4 games back of 500. Ouch.
What happened?
Made the wrong picks. You talked me into thinking Ohio State was going to win that game over Penn State on Friday when we talked about it, because of all the success that Ohio State had against Penn State, and especially James Franklin. Now 1-9 is James Franklin against the Buckeyes, and I forgot to switch it.
Oh, you didn't switch it?
I didn't switch it.
I was going to say, what,
you talked me right into it, and I
won.
didn't switch it. I forgot to switch it.
Man, I tell you what, Penn State's a fraud. Are they not a fraud? Go back and look at their records. When did Franklin?
This is his 10th year. They've won the Big Ten once.
Look at this record. They keep showing it against Ohio State.
1-9. I know it.
That should have been our. That should have been like. Wait a minute.
I saw it.
We cannot pick Penn State in this game.
I saw it, and then that's what I'm saying. When we talked about it on Friday, I had seen James Franklin's abysmal record against Ohio State. He's a little bit better against Michigan, 3-6.
Yeah, but Michigan was a little down at that time. Now they've kind of come back.
Yeah, but still. But the problem was I didn't switch it. I was convinced that Ohio State was going to win the game. I just forgot to switch the pick. And that's on me. Man, Big Poppy 10's running away all of a sudden. A 5-game lead for first. We're going to have to find out if that's really Jim. Is that Jim, or is that Jared Cudd's son from Arapahoe in second? Traber's pick.
Could be.
We got a Suitor. We got Embreeze. We got you. 10 above. And then me languishing down there in the middle.
Let me see who let me down this week.
Yeah, Penn State.
Hey, is Air Force going to go undefeated and
maybe
and get into a New Year's Six? That'd be kind of
very,
cool.
very, very good possibility.
Well, OU obviously let me down.
Yeah, you knew that was coming. They weren't going to cover every spread all year long.
Texas didn't cover. It's obvious. North Carolina let me down. Washington. Come on, Washington.
I had the other side of that one. That was one of the ones I got right. I was afraid of the letdown after the huge win over Oregon and just not quite being sharp, and it turns out that was it. Oh, by the way, there's Billy. He's way down there himself. Happy birthday, Billy. It's Billy's birthday over the weekend.
Hey, good job. Happy birthday, Billy.
At the bottom, our man Paulie is still right there, 30-50. Who is the closest? 33 and 47s. Yep. 34 and 46 for our man John David. There's a little separation happening right now, Jared.
A little bit.
Still a few weeks to go, though. Still a bunch of weeks to go.
I'm looking for one person, and I'm not sure if he's on our group or if he was in another group, but he said he went over this week.
Oh, no.
He missed.
Ice Trey. I've got you spotted.
It's Trey.
I've got you spotted right here.
Trey from Newcastle.
At 76th.
He goes, man, you'd have to try.
Yeah.
to miss all those, and still couldn't do it.
Yeah.
That's all right, Trey. I told him there is a prize for the last place if you want to keep trying to miss them all.
You better keep missing. All right, we had a question. Where's JB? I don't know. Right there, 23rd.
23rd.
43 and 37. 10 games back of first, but only 4 back of third. That's a possibility. Have a couple of really hot weeks, and you'll move right up.
Yep.
Thank you to Tyler, Harrison, Robbie Allen, and all the gang at Western Oklahoma Realty. People before property is their motto. It's always a fun game all throughout the year. Appreciate everybody playing as well. 123 of you out there. College football, Jared. Sooners squeak by the University of Central Florida, 31-29. I felt like Biff from Back to the Future 2, watching the game with the people I was watching it with. Toward the end of the third quarter, I said, you know how this game's going to end, right? They looked at me like, I don't know how. Oh, you losing? I said, no. It's going to come down to Oklahoma stopping a 2-point conversion. And they looked, well, it's 23-17. They're behind. How is that going to matter? I said, because they're going to score twice, and then UCF's going to go down and get a touchdown, and they're going to have to stop a 2-point conversion in order to win the game. Whammo. Wish I had it on tape so I could play it. Because all right, Joe and KJ looked at me like I had two heads.
Yeah.
When I said that, like, really, it's a 6-point where you're behind by 6. How they were trying to figure out, okay, why would the 2-point?
They're doing
that.
Yeah.
That would just be a 2-point lead. They have to score. I said, no, they're going to score twice. That's how it's going to happen. And sure enough, they did, and that's exactly how it played out. How do you view how do you view that game?
Well, I don't know. I've been racking my brain about this. I don't want to say a Texas hangover because I said earlier last week or on Friday that they've had 2 weeks to prepare for this. They had the week off. That whole hangover theory should be put to bed.
Well, now 24-1
after
the last 25 years after the Texas game.
Yeah. Elaborate. Text line.
Oh, he's mad about the pass interference that at the end of the first half that took away an interception in the end zone.
Oh, okay.
And gave Oklahoma 3 points.
Okay.
That's what he's talking about.
Oh, all right. So that changed the whole complexity of the game, the whole second half.
Well, if you take away 3, it's a 1-point win for Central Florida.
Okay, yeah, you must be right, OSU fanboy. I also wondered, and I did say this about preparing for the quarterback that has been injured. He was okay. I mean, but there was some busted coverage. I think that was a big part of that. I don't know. Run game did step up though when it mattered, but they were still having trouble establishing the run game early in that game. It was frustrating to watch. How about you? What was your overall? What'd you take away from it? Like, why did Central Florida stick around?
I mean, multitude of reasons. Oklahoma came out horribly in the first quarter on offense. I mean, you could make the case it should have been 21 or 24-0. Well, take 24 out of it because it's not like the kicker was going to make a field goal, which is a huge concern.
That's a big concern.
But Oklahoma's offense just I don't know if it was just trying so hard to beat your head against the wall because that team couldn't stop the run, or just kind of lack of focus. I mean, the very first possession, everybody's been clamoring, me included, to see Gavin Sawchuk on the field, and what does he do? He lets snap goes right through his hands, and then he drops a pass. I mean, it just kind of got off on the bad start. And Oklahoma defensively in the first quarter was awesome, obviously, and created all that field position. I think the first 4 drives, it was from the OU 45, from the UCF 46, from the UCF 45, and from the UCF 40. And they scored 7 points. And that's we've seen that kind of the other way, though. We really haven't seen over the past, decade, 5 years, whatever, if you want to go back to Riley, if you want to go clear back through some of the end of Stoops. We haven't really seen where it was the offense keeping teams in games. Normally it's the other way around. Score a bunch of points, but you're giving up a bunch of points, and then it's close. That's not the way that game started. Oklahoma's offense had a chance to really bury UCF from the beginning, and they didn't do it. And then all of a sudden, Malzahn, he's who he is for a reason. And the way he schemes things up, I mean, that touchdown right before the half, I mean, I just had flashbacks to watching Auburn, Alabama, and how many times did a play like that work for Auburn against Alabama, where you just suck up the defense with the quarterback thinking he's going to take off running, and you forget about a guy and you let somebody loose. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what happened. And I'm surprised they didn't go back to that, to be quite honest. And they never did for the rest of the game. So I was really surprised they didn't go back to that. But, I think you can look at it a bunch of different ways. Oklahoma was sloppy. Oklahoma made mistakes. Oklahoma absolutely could have lost that game, but they didn't. And you think the folks in Chapel Hill, North Carolina right now would have taken an ugly win? I know the folks in Seattle, Washington are glad for an ugly win.
Right.
Folks in Austin, Texas are glad for an ugly win.
Well, it's like kind of what did we say after the SMU game? What were we saying?
Well, that's the last thing for me. That's a game Oklahoma absolutely loses a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely lose it. And so, if you want to go with the glass half full, it's you sneak out with a win and you're still undefeated. You're still in the national title race. You're still in the playoff race and all that. But I think the concerning thing is you can see cracks maybe starting to form and a loss coming after a game like that.
Yeah, unless things are fixed. But if they play like that in Lawrence, I got news for you. Kansas is a little better than Central Florida. We know that based on the results they've already played. But yeah, they got to. So maybe it's a wake up call, but a win's a win. They're 7-0, survive in advance. It's kind of the narrative I'm looking at. It's like they're undefeated. They keep going. Everything else will take care of itself. They can just. It wasn't pretty. And it's kind of like we talked about the Elk City game. Now, okay, we know what we got to work on. We got to get better in this department.
Yeah, okay,
but get better here.
That's all fine and dandy, but it didn't. We all knew that the running game needs to be worked on. So is all of a sudden there's
I've kind of put my hands up. It's like it's not going to work. It's not working.
So there's no glimmer of hope at the end with the way they played in the fourth quarter?
7 games in, if they can't run the damn football, then I've given up.
Well, but they did in the fourth quarter. So there's no glimmer of hope there.
I don't know. Why wait till the fourth quarter? I don't know why they couldn't do that in the first quarter.
They tried.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
They tried.
I kind of put my hands up. Like, I don't have any faith in them able to run the football. I do wonder if they had – now, Anderson's awesome. All he does is catch touchdown passes. But I wonder with the lack of well, of course you agree with me. You root for OSU. I mean, text line.
All right, move on from that.
Yeah.
Talk about what you're talking
about. Filling the void of the hurt wide receiver. I wonder if there's going to be something of that, seeing any bit of that. But Gabriel's throws, they seem to keep – they sailed a little bit like we kind of saw last year in key third downs.
Here's the truth. Gabriel didn't play good against Texas, but because of the last drive, nobody cares. How many throws did he – the big-time throws, he still doesn't hit them. He still doesn't hit the really important throws to keep drives alive.
Yeah.
In those moments, he did it all day against Texas, but nobody cared because of the last minute 15. Nobody cared. But you can go back to that game on Saturday to keep drives alive early to go score, or to try to mount comeback drives when you're down. I mean, I think Jaden Gibson made an unbelievable catch at midfield on a third down on a ball that was just horrifically thrown, and then the very next play, Farouk is wide open at about the 35-yard line, and he throws it way behind him, incomplete, and then what happens the next 2 plays? He gets sacked, and Sooners are punting it. By the way, found a punter. Maybe the most positive thing in the whole game. Bazinga can punt. Did you get the reference?
No. Bazinga?
Yeah. His name is Elzinga. Bazinga. Did you not watch
Was
Big
that
Bang
a
Theory?
Big Bang Theory reference?
Yes.
I was thinking, well, because I didn't know his name, so I'm thinking, is that really his name?
No, Bazinga can punt.
Well, keep going, kid. Yeah.
Now
he's earned a nickname then.
Kicker, who knows? That guy. Oof.
Can he kick field goals though?
Is anybody confident about that? Now, last thing, defensively, there were some plays, but I think you can look positive on that as well. They held UCF to like under 400 yards, and they were averaging well over 500 yards. So, 120 less than their average. I think there was some good things about the defense, but a couple big plays, big runs, the one big pass down the sideline. There's some issues there that need to be fixed. Oklahoma State went into Morgantown, West Virginia. That was a wild one. Seemed like it was one of those games that the home team was going to find a way to win, and then the fourth quarter happened, and Ollie Gordon just ran absolutely wild up and down the field against West Virginia. And the Cowboys win 48-34, putting themselves absolutely 100% in the race for Arlington. Because, once again, schedule. When you look at the schedule, obviously Bedlam is looming in a couple of weeks. Outside of that, you host Cincinnati this week, you go to UCF, you go to Houston, and you host BYU. That schedule is much more favorable than the other teams that are fighting in the race for Arlington.
Man.
And what's crazy is who wouldn't want to see an OSU Texas game this year? And it's just not going to happen because it's not on the schedule. And OSU has that win over K-State in their back pocket as well.
They are a one bad spot away from possibly having an inside track to the second place. I'm referencing that Texas-Houston game, if you think about it. If they can continue to take care of business, OSU that is, and in Texas now without their quarterback apparently for the next couple of games, who knows what can happen. So but you can control what you only can control, and OSU I thought played great. We talk about one team that can't run the ball. Man, that is Ollie Gordon's arguably the best running back in the Big 12.
I don't think it's much of an argument at the moment.
He was awesome on Saturday. I watched a good chunk of that game when I got home. So they appeared to have turned the corner. This week, Cincinnati, you would think they should be fine with that, and hopefully not looking ahead to Bedlam, and could set up a really good last Bedlam for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I mean,
if OU can take care of business in Lawrence, and then OSU take care of Cincinnati like we think they should, we think OU should. And what suddenly looked like could be a sleeper of a snoozer of a Bedlam game just, 2-3 weeks ago, now it's all of a sudden it has some implications, not just for bragging rights, but for Arlington, for a trip to Arlington. So, but yeah, back to Ollie Gordon, though. He looked awesome.
29 for 282, 4 touchdowns. 3 of those came in the fourth quarter. And kudos to Oklahoma State's offensive line, a really sore subject early on. They have turned things completely around. And now, if you're an OSU fan, you look back at a couple of those. The South Alabama, Ollie Gordon and Brendan Presley touched the ball 5 times in that game combined. What? I mean, how silly does that look now? It just looks silly with the way that guy, there's that stat out there, Scott Wright says it every time he's on the Morning Animals, about if you give him the ball 12 times or more, they've never lost. And look at the carries that Ollie Gordon's had the last 4 weeks, starting at the Iowa State game, which is really kind of when he broke out. 18 for 121, 21 for 136, 29 for 168, and now 29 for 282. And his average yards per carry have been at 6 or higher. It was almost 10 on Saturday, which is just silly. And a bunch of those big runs at the end obviously helped that, but still. Oklahoma State, it's amazing to me where they've come from in a month and how much different the conversation is about the Pokes right now than it was just a few short weeks ago. I mean, they were a lot of people's next to last best team in the Big 12 going into that Kansas State game. And now you look up, and I guarantee you the people, if you start ranking them, a bunch of people will rank them third. Even though they had that Iowa State loss, you look at the standings, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Texas, and Kansas State all tied at 3-1. Well, Iowa State has an advantage over OSU. OSU has an advantage over K-State. And then Texas plays both Iowa State and K-State coming up. And it looks like for sure the K-State game without Ewers in 2 weeks. Yeah, the day of Bedlam, November the 4th, it's not just going to be a Bedlam day. It's also K-State, Texas day. There's going to be...
It's like Big 12 shakeout day.
That's exactly what it's going to be there when that week comes up here in 2 weeks.
It's funny. On the text line, 2 separate people said, it's going to be nice when OU gets him in the transfer portal. Gordon, that is. I wouldn't say, OU needs to offer all a NIL deal.
I know when you hear Kelly Gundy talk about that recruitment, he really, really, really wanted him, and then didn't get him. Recruited him, but didn't get him, and went to Oklahoma State. Now he's the guy. You heard about him all last. It's the hype has been building, but you hadn't seen it on the field. And partly, you got to think that if you're Gundy, if you're Casey Dunn, you're looking back, going, "What were we doing?"
Well, that has to be frustrating for OSU fans.
What were we doing?
Even just a fan of college football is like, why haven't we seen this guy earlier in the year?
Yeah.
Could have been the difference in a couple of games.
Yep. So, but pokes are rolling. It's a look-ahead spot, I think, coming up this week. But the one thing about, I think the positive is it's homecoming, and that normally kind of creates focus because of how big a deal homecoming is up there. So that may really, really help them this week to be able to stay focused on Cincinnati and not get your thoughts to the 4th of November.
I'd be shocked if, at this point, the way OSU's turned that corner, I'd be shocked if Cincinnati even gave them a game. I think OSU's just clearly the better team on the field.
Yeah, it's just a matter of staying focused. Cincinnati's defensive line is good, so maybe it forces Bowman a little bit more to be involved in winning the game. But yeah, that should be a game that Oklahoma State wins. We'll see about the Sooners in Kansas, and then here comes Bedlam.
What time is that Cincinnati game for OSU? What time?
7 o'clock.
It's a night game. It is a night game.
Yep, it's a night game
because it's homecoming, of course.
Rest of the Big 12. You mentioned the spot with Texas and Houston. Golly, it looked like the Horns were just going to crush the Cougs early on, 21-0. Then the Ewers injury happens, and Houston kind of figured them out. It's the second most yards thrown against Texas since I can't remember how it's Pete K is the defense coordinator, Kayatowski or whatever that is, however you say his name. Second most yards thrown against the Texas defense since he's been the defensive coordinator. Donovan Smith, we've seen him at Tech a couple of times, kind of had huge games this time at Houston, had huge games on Saturday, but the Horns did just enough. You mentioned Ewers' injury. It looks from the early reporting 3 or 4 weeks. So that means most of the rest of the regular season should be back for a Big 12 title game appearance if that happens for Texas. And now it's Malik Murphy. Isn't that his name? No, that's the guy from – does he have the same name as the guy from Chickasha?
Let me look.
That rolled off the tongue like I was right.
I think Murphy is the last name.
I think it is. I think it's Malik Murphy.
Oh, my goodness. This computer just –
Anyhow.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Malik Murphy. That's his. Okay. Anyway. So the Horns do get the win. They keep themselves right there in the hunt. But how much louder does we're getting these texts? How much louder do we get some of the Arch Manning stuff?
Yeah.
Now that Ewers is out.
That's the thing. I mean, everyone's going to as soon as Murphy starts to struggle, you're going to start hearing those rumblings of get him in. But it definitely makes these games. I know they open like as an 18-point favorite versus BYU. Should win that one. I think they'd be okay. But then Kansas State, TCU, Iowa State, Texas Tech. Without Ewers, it gives you how are they going to fare in those games? Especially at TCU, is kind of maybe figuring some things out.
What?
Did they lose?
Oh my gosh!
Did I miss that? BYU
crushed.
Oh wow! I guess
them.
I overlooked that one.
Yeah, it looked like they were figuring stuff out with the different. It was like almost the Chandler Morris curse. He went out and they found a quarterback that could play, and then, yeah.
Well, then suddenly that BYU game looks a little interesting.
No, wait a minute.
More interesting.
No. TCU crushed BYU. Who? Kansas State. It was Kansas State just annihilated them this week, wasn't it? TCU. Yeah, 41-3. It was K-State that annihilated them.
Now Kansas State is suddenly a really good team with their quarterback.
Will Howard played quarterback.
He played quarterback?
Threw 3 touchdowns.
Wow. I've never been I was not impressed with that guy when he came to Stillwater, and I thought they need to move on, and I thought they did against Tech.
Yeah. Will Howard threw 3 touchdowns. And just a
talk
beat
about
down.
a mid-season quarterback controversy.
They used them both, but Howard was good.
Main guy. Yeah, so we'll see. And again, this goes back to OSU's chances here. I think OSU really needs to watch what Texas does. And if OSU can take care of business, how fun would a Bedlam Big 12 championship game be?
It'd be pretty nice. We're going to look up we're going to figure out the tiebreakers.
We have to figure out how that.
And it's going to really get interesting if OSU wins Bedlam. Then I don't know how anybody's going to figure out who's going to Arlington at that. I mean, at least at that point, there's a chance that you'd only have like 3 teams, since Texas plays Iowa State and Kansas State down the stretch. So it couldn't be like a 5-teamer with 1 loss anyway. It could with 2. Then it could be wild when you get to if something like that were to happen. All right, around the country, Ohio State does what they do, which is beat Penn State each and every time they play. It seems like an ugly game. It wasn't pretty whatsoever. But Ohio State does get the win. The concerns that we mentioned for Penn State moving forward were absolutely well-founded. Drew Aller throwing the football down the field. He couldn't. 18 of 42 for 191. That's not good quarterback play. He didn't turn it over as far as throwing an interception. But Ohio State just did enough to win, 20-12. So they're right in the thick of the Big Ten race. Let me look at their schedule. They may just be kind of cruising until they have to head up to Ann Arbor. At Rutgers, Michigan State at home, Minnesota at home, at Michigan. You don't see a lot there.
Nope.
And then Penn State hosts Michigan. Is that this week? 2 weeks coming up. So Big Ten starting to shake itself out as the Pac-12 as well. Utah beats USC for the 4th straight time. Did you see what Emmanuel Acho said after the game?
Suggesting Williams should shut it down.
Shut it down. I'll tell you what, let's take a break, then we'll come back and talk about that and hit some baseball as well to finish the show. I think there's an interesting dynamic that plays a part in this that wouldn't have, say, 5 years ago. Skinny on Sports wrapping up on Monday when we come back right here on The Sports Animal.
Hi, everybody. This is David Osterloh. Many of you know me because I ran a retail business in Elk City for over 30 years. That's where I learned that if you take care of your customers, they will take care of you. So when it was time to look for a career in real estate, I wanted to land someplace that had the same principles. Western Oklahoma Realty seemed like a natural fit. Putting people before property is the same as taking care of your customers. Since I've been at Western Oklahoma Realty, I've come to understand that is how they do business. People before property is not just a hashtag, it's a way of taking care of customers. When you are looking for your next home, we will find a place that your family can call home. When you are going to sell your current home, we will find a buyer that loves your place as much as you do. Western Oklahoma Realty, where putting people before property is a way of life. Come see us at 602 West 3rd Street. We are in the historic greenhouse on the hill, 1 block west of Homeland. Or you can check out our website, westernoklahomarealty.com, or even call us at 580-225-6271.
The Skinny on Sports.
Welcome back, Skinny on Sports, 98.1 FM, The Sports Animal, wrapping up a Monday here with, all right, so Emmanuel Acho. After the loss from USC, their second loss in a row, this time to the Utah Utes, he tweets out, let me find, I don't want to misquote him. Well, he tweets a bunch. Here it is. It says, his tweet was, with the national championship hopes gone, Caleb Williams should consider sitting out the rest of the season. Heisman's a long shot, college football playoffs even less likely, and he won't play in the bowl game. The risk of playing far outweighs the reward. It's a business decision.
And that's odd. It'd look bad. But I see what he's saying. It'd be unprecedented if you did it. Well, what do you think? You said something would prevent that?
Yeah, I think there's 3 little letters out there that prevent this now. NIL. If he just quits playing, does that money go away?
So that's what I've always wondered about NIL deals. Do they have clauses in there that says you have to play an X amount of games in a season? Barring injury, that's understandable. You can't not pay a kid because he got hurt. But I've always wondered that if there's any clauses in there that say you have to play these games. I've always been on the side of if we're seeing a lot of if it's a bowl game that doesn't matter in the players' eyes, they sit out. I've thought, why don't these money men who are creating these NIL deals say, hey, listen, you've got to play a bowl game. I'll give you a bonus if you play the bowl game, if you don't sit out, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wondered what kind of, I don't know the legalese behind it, but I've always wondered if there's anything like that.
Yeah, that's the one thing.
You would think
we
there
just
is.
have no
we
idea.
We have no clue. But, he also has deals with, what is it?
He's in the Heisman House.
Wendy's and Nissan.
Beats by Dre.
Beats by Dre. Yeah. I wonder if there's anything in there that, if they're like, hey, listen, you're our face of the brand new hamburger, and we have to see you out there playing. People have to – this doesn't work unless you're out there performing.
So there's the NIL part of it, which to me is kind of down the list. There's there's that pesky thing of, being a leader, which at the quarterback spot, that's what you're supposed to be. What would the NFL scouts think about a guy that's supposed to be the leader quitting when things got tough like this?
Right.
Quitting at the first sign of adversity, basically in his career. Here's another stat. This was popped up during the game on Saturday night. And this is another reason why him playing with whatever the risk of the injuries or whatever that being out there, but also, so in his career, obviously back to here in Norman as well, he has started now 29 games. 23 of those were against non-top 25 total defenses. In those 23 games, he completes 70% of his passes, throws for almost 300 and a little over 317 yards, and he's thrown 78 touchdowns versus 7 interceptions. So a little bit better than 11-1 touchdown to interception rate against teams that don't have a top 25 defense, against teams that don't play good defense. Now, after the other night, he has now played 6 games against top 25 defenses. Going into that game, he had only completed 51% of his passes, averaging 172 yards per game. So he was a little bit better in that regard the other night with 256. And, 24 of 34, better than 66, whatever. Touchdown to interception, 6 and 6. 6 touchdowns, 6 picks against the best, the 6 times now, because he didn't throw either on Saturday night. So a 1-to-1 touchdown to interception rate against the 6 top 25 defenses that he's ever played. That's these are things, when you're hearing he's the greatest prospect since this, or all the things that we've heard about him. See, these are the things that the football people in the NFL will find. I mean, everybody wants to clown on Draft Day, the movie. But is anybody going to Caleb's birthday party? His reaction after the game?
Oh, that stood out to me.
Is that the face of somebody you want leading your organization? And that wants to, by the way, have ownership stake in your organization?
Yeah, him sitting on the bench after the game, I get it's the loss, the passion of wanting to win and the agony of defeat. I get all that, but there's still a part of me like, be a man, stand up, shake their hand.
We'll get to the Riley stuff tomorrow. Him not making players available after the game to talk. A lot of the longtime USC people that you saw on Twitter after it happened, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and that's never happened. It's funny, because when the people here tried to tell those people out there what would happen, it was sour grapes. Oh, you guys are just hurt.
Right.
Your heart's broken because he left you. Turns out they were trying to tell you what was going to happen. And the arrogance of the folks out there, they wouldn't listen. And now they're getting a big dose of it. And as Sam said on the text line, Bill Plaschke annihilated Lincoln Riley over the weekend.
I read that.
And it's going to continue. It's going to absolutely continue to happen if he continues to run his program the way that he always has. So there's no reason to believe he's going to change. We'll keep the Riley talk going tomorrow when we hit the our top tens and that kind of thing. Real quick though, Jared, what is your pulse for the game tonight? Game 7, ALCS, Rangers, Houston, Scherzer versus Javier.
What did I say before this?
You said Rangers in 7.
So clearly I feel pretty good about it.
Rangers in 7. Yeah. Now, wait a minute. But when you made that prediction, you hadn't seen Scherzer on the mound.
Listen, Scherzer got his rehab start. He's good to go now. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. The start, that's what we were going to get. We were going to get really, really good Scherzer, or we were going to get about 85% Scherzer. And you kind of wish the rehab start would have came at Round Rock in August and not in the ALCS against the Houston Astros. So he got his rehab start. This is why you got him. This is why the Rangers went and got him. It's for moments like this, games like this. And if he doesn't work out, they're going to pull in Jordan Montgomery. They're going to pull out all the stops, and so will Houston. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I said it when the series before it even started. Rangers in 7, and I'm going to look good tomorrow when the Rangers win it.
Scherzer has been in this exact position on this exact mound not that long ago, in 2019. In the only other series in the baseball history I could find that went this way, and that was the road team won every game. Houston's been in this position of falling behind 2-0 on their home field, going and winning 3 in a row. They did it at Washington in the 2019 World Series, and then came back and ended up losing that World Series to Max Scherzer and the Washington Nationals. Here's another note. The Houston Astros this season, they're trying to do something that nobody has ever done in the history of Major League Baseball. You know what that is?
What would that be?
Make the World Series with a losing record on their home field. They went 39-42 at home. After last year going like 52-20 maybe? Or 52-29, something like that. This year 39-42. No team has ever made it to the World Series with a losing record on their home field.
I heard they filed a petition to get this game moved
to move
back
it to Arlington.
But it was too late. It was past the deadline. They got the Abreu stuff to worry about.
That's a storyline, that appeal hearing probably happening right now.
Probably.
To see if Abreu, the reliever Abreu, is able to play. Also, the Diamondbacks try to do something that hasn't happened in forever, and that's win a playoff game in Philadelphia. They've got to stay alive as Philly took a 3-2 lead. Schwarber keeps on hitting bombs. I think he's hit 5 that series, 1 each game, or what totals to 1 each game on average. He's now the all-time postseason home run king from the left side of the plate. We talked about him tying Reggie Jackson a couple of days ago. Now he's passed him with just bomb after bomb. I mean, we don't give Arizona, what do you give them, a 1% chance of winning both of those games? Or even less than that.
Maybe less than that. At Philly is incredibly tough.
It seems like a different animal, doesn't it?
It's crazy there. But up and down their lineup, outside of where they're playing, Philadelphia presents problems up and down that lineup. I don't know, and I said this going into the series, I didn't know if Arizona had enough pitching to keep up with that. Because if it's not Schwarber, it's Harper. If it's not Harper, it's fill in the blank.
Yeah, Realmuto hit a home run the other day.
Exactly. So it just, yeah, you get those two guys out, they're going to throw another two at you, or a hit against you. So it's a hot lineup right now.
Yeah, and guess what? Aaron Nola on the mound for Philly tonight, 3-0 in the playoffs, .96 ERA, 18.2 innings pitched, or 18 and 2/3, I'm sorry. Struck out 19, walked 2 against Merrill Kelly.
Love to see Arizona win. I got nothing against Philly. They're awesome to watch and fun to watch, but I just love Game 7. So,
first Game 7 since 2000.
Awesome.
Real quick, no matter who wins tonight, is Philly the favorite?
I think Philly
in the World
is.
Series.
I think they are. Vegas says they are. I'm checking that like daily now, but yeah, I would. After what happened to them last year, they're ready to bring home the title.
Where?
Don't know.
Who would have home field?
Don't know.
Houston or Philly if it's them in Texas? Have a great Monday.
You've been listening to the Skinny on Sports podcast with Aaron Cow. Be sure to hit that subscribe button to get alerts of when the latest podcast is available. Thanks for listening.
That ball is blistered to right. Way back. Goodbye.
We were sitting around the office one day and tried to explain what Western Oklahoma Realty was. If you had to put it in a dictionary, what would you get? What kind of definition you would get? I think I said what about, were people before property?
People before property means to me that you care about the person more than you care about what they're buying, in that you want them to get the best thing for their circumstances, the best home, the best investment.
For all your real estate needs, give Western Oklahoma Realty a call at 225-6271.